The meta still hasn't changed too much from the last top 5 I gave you guys, but still, in this video I will show you all the best performing Hearthstone decks right now, so you guys know what to be playing until the next nerf, which maybe should be happening in about 10 days from now. If you enjoy what I'm doing and you find the video helpful, a like and subscribe would really help. And also, don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Now, let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
The first deck on the list is gonna be Miracle Rogue. Miracle Rogue is still super strong, and you can do some absolutely busted stuff with it even as soon as turn 2 if you get lucky. This variant is utilizing the concoctions as well as your wild pog gnolls, so you can have some pretty huge locations even as soon as turn 2, but usually turn 3 or 4. I gave you guys a very detailed guide about this list, so no need to go into detail here. But yeah, what you usually want to be doing with this deck is on turn 1 tradable, on turn 2 cutlass, and that usually gives you a turn 2 gnoll down to 0 mana, because Potion Belt actually gives you 3 different cards, because you get 2 concoctions that mix into a third concoction, and that is 3 unique cards, as long as still you have been in the Maestro disguise, which you should be on turn 2. I said usually because Astlore is your only neutral card, and if you get unlucky to draw him on turn 1 or 2, you will not be discounting down to 0 mana, but only down to 1. What you usually want to be doing here is big location men, but you also shouldn't be sleeping on the possibility of just tempo out a ton of minions super early, including 0 mana gnolls, scribbling stenographers, or just random free drops out of your potion belts and such. Matchup wise, the list is very populated, and as you can see, Quest Demon Hunter is not going to be super good for you. And same goes for Plague Priest and Charge Warrior, but honestly you won't be seeing too much of those two. Everything else is very fair game for you. Mulligan wise, going first and second, Potion Belt, Blackwater Cutlass, Gnoll, and Location are always going to be great keeps for you. Potion Master Putricide can also be a good keep if you're against a board centric matchup. Ghoulish Alchemist I would only keep if I already have a Potion Belt. And the rest I'd say are gonna be kinda situational for you. Don't get baited into keeping Concoctor, because that is not what you wanna be doing on turn 1, but you'd rather top deck him later as a cheap fuel for bigger locations or for a bigger Edwin, let's say. When on the coin, it's literally the same thing like I said. Here are your best top 4 picks. Preparation becomes more keepable here, Edwin as well I guess. Scribbling Stenographer can also make some sense in certain cases, and also Shadow of the Mice can be extremely amazing here because a second coin when you're going second can be huge. And that is actually how you can be popping off as soon as turn 2 for instance. For other good rogue decks we also have the Krakatoa variant, which is a little bit heavy honestly, but it's definitely not a bad thing to have. There's also Thief Jackpot rogues out there which are still going very strong, but obviously the Miracle is the way to go right now. On the number 2 spot we also have still Quest Spell Demon Hunter with the Soul Eater Sai. This variant is not even running Jace anymore, but instead you have Abusive Sergeant, which can do some extreme OTKs with Lady Steno as soon as turn 5, and the third minion you have in here is obviously the Silver Moon Arcanist, which helps you survive long enough, but it also is a great way for you to get extra damage. With the Silver Moon Arcanist, what you want to be doing is healing a bit with Unleash Fel after turn 6, or just making a big-ish Fel Barrage, as well as Mark of Scorn. Just don't get fooled using it with Fel Duray Warband, because you will not be able to target face like that. You also have a couple of Sinful Brands in here, with which, if the opponent is dumb enough to give you a very big minion, you can slap a couple of brands on it, and just attack with a bunch of your Rush minions into it for tons of damage. And the Sinful Brand actually persists throughout turns, so if the opponent doesn't get rid of his own minion, you still have an extra turn to slap into it. The quest in this deck is purely for the discount, so don't even bother trying to complete the last step. You only want to get a bunch of discounts, so you can actually make a bigger, better Lady Steno later. Matchup wise, Blood Death Knight might be a problem, as well as Ram Druid, but everything else is pretty green in Legend. From Diamond to Legend, as you can see, Mages are also not going to be great, as well as Evolved Shamans and Pure Paladins. But let's not forget this is a very high skill cap deck, so Diamond through Legend is not really the segment you should be looking at if you're actually very good with this deck. Mulligan wise, here's what it looks like when going first. Your card draw is basically what you're looking for. Depending on the matchup, even Unleash Fel might make some sense, even though I don't really think that's a great idea. Fel Barrage is definitely usable for you as early game removal as well. And I wouldn't really be keeping things like Fel Duray Warband and such, so yeah, keep that in mind. And when on the coin, Eldrazi Warblade seems a little bit too high on the keep list, but apparently it makes some sense so you can have more survivability. But yeah, you're still basically looking for your good card draw with Spectral Sight, Mark of Scorn, and even Chaos Strike honestly should be making sense. For other good Demon Hunter decks, we basically have a bunch of different variants of Quest Spell Fel DH. And the Jace variant is still also strong, but as you can see, the Abusive Sergeant 1 seems to be the pro-dominant variant now. Aggro Demon Hunter is under 50%, so keep that in mind. On the number 3 spot, we still have Shockspitter Hunter doing very well. And even though Shockspitter got bumped the mana, as you can see, it doesn't really matter as much. Nowadays, you want to be playing a little bit more control-y in the early turns so you can actually last long enough for the Shockspitter turns. But that is actually not your only game plan, because you can also cheat out Hydrolon as soon as turn 5, and that can be an extremely powerful play against most opponents. You can do that with the help of your Stormpike Battling Ram, so definitely don't just always pick Shock Spitters when you use selective breeders like that. We also have Astloran here, which basically fits any kind of deck, and you have a ton of weapons so you can keep on swinging. You have both your Bloodseekers, both your Candle Shots, and let's not forget you can get a bunch of more weapons from your stags out of your Wild Spirits, as well as your Spirit Poachers. We also have Keen Eye Spotter, which works amazingly well with the help of your Candle Shots, so you can take down very big minions without even taking any damage like that. We have Barracuda Bane for a ton of card draw, and Beaststalker Tavish can also be insanely good for you, because it's such a good defensive card, but also don't forget this also unfreezes your face, so if the opponent is trying to play smart against you and actually freeze you over and over again, you can unfreeze yourself and keep on swinging so you can get your bigger Shock Spitters later. With your Stormpike Battling Ram, you can have a 1-mana Shock Spitter saved up for your brand turn so you can do some crazy stuff as soon as turn 7 like that, and you can also get extra Shock Spitters with the help of Devouring Swarm. Don't forget that Devouring Swarm is gonna attack the minions into the enemy in the order in which you have played them in, so be smart about when you use it, because in some cases it's just not gonna do what you want it to do. Matchup-wise, Quest Demon Hunter might be a problem, and also Miracle Rogue is in the negative, as well as Evolve Shaman, but everything else is pretty good. Mulligan-wise, going first and second, Spirit Poacher and Candle Shot and Wild Spirits are always gonna be great keeps. Bloodseeker can also make a lot of sense, Iron Deep Trog as well can be pretty good, and if you already have a great hand, you might even keep Beaststalker Tavish. And when on a coin, it's literally the same thing, but even Stormpike Battling Ram can make a lot of sense. For other good Hunter decks, we also have Beast Hunter still doing fairly well from Diamond to Legend, but you won't see any of those in Top Legend, so keep that in mind. There's actually also a Face Hunter I managed to actually see on ladder, which is running things like K9atron, as well as Twin Bow Terracoil, and collateral damage, so that can be tons of damage, so best be prepared for something like that if you see some weird Hunter cards. On the number 4 spot, we still have Frost Death Knight doing very strong, and this variant is running Vicious Slither Spears instead of the +2 spell power Guild Traders, which I'm not entirely sold on, but this is what the stats show right now, at least from Diamond to Legend. Vicious Slither Spears are pretty good for you because they basically solve the problem of you not having a 1-drop with this deck, aside from your Bonebreaker, which is not really a 1-drop, but still. And you also have double Chillfallen Baron with this one, so you have tons of card draw. Just don't get baited into going super fast with spells when you have a Vicious Slither Spear on the board. You're basically running this so your opponent can actually overcommit to it and try to destroy it super fast, even though you're not really planning on sinking that much spells that early. The rest of the deck is standard Frost Decay, so you guys can check out my detailed guide about it so you know how to play better with it. Matchup wise, Quest Spell Demon Hunter is not going to be the best deck for you, as well as Ram Druid, but the rest is pretty good. Mulligan wise, here's what it looks like going first. Harbinger of Winter, Tessarian, Bonebreaker, and Vicious Slither Spear are definitely your top keeps. If you already have a Harbinger of Winter, you can also consider keeping a Nerubian Visor, which is going to be pretty good for you. Horn of Winter, I would only keep it if I already have a very good playable hand, like, I don't know, double Harbinger of Winter could be a pretty good plan as soon as turn 2. Chillfallen Baron, he's also a pretty decent keep, and you could even consider a Frost Strike against certain opponents. Death Chiller is also not a horrible keep in the early turns, like tempoing him out can solve a lot of problems, especially against aggressive matchups. When on the coin, the situation is similar, but Frost Strike is a lot higher on the keep list, and Lady Death Whisper can also make the cut here. For other good Death Knights, you can see that Frost Death Knight is dominating the top picks. There's also this weird Frost Blood Death Knight out there with Patchwork, as well as a couple of Gnome Munchers and a Connie, which sounds a little bit weird, but I guess it has some merit to it. And we also have Blood Death Knights doing fairly well, even though the stats are not that high and the win rate is not that high. I've seen a lot of Unholy Death Knight lately, and as you can see, it's not actually doing as good, so probably best stay away from that one. And on the number 5 spot, again we have Big Spell Mage, which is basically farming all of the Spell Demon Hunters and Frost Death Knights, because it has a lot of great tools against those. You still have your good early game with a bunch of high priority minions like Pelican Diver, Farwatch Post. Mailbox Dancer can be super annoying because it does give you a coin, so you need to address it and actually dispense that coin before turn 5 or 6 when they can actually play their Barbaric Sorceress and try to snipe a 0 mana and give you a 9 or a 10. Their location is really good, Blade Master Akani is great for stall, Deepwater Evoker gives them ton of armor as well as good card draw. Varden with the good board freezes. Belinda is obviously a very high impact minion they often actually have on curve. And also don't forget about the Barbaric Sorceress and try to actually dispense your spells fast enough so they don't punish you for it. After they've cast some of their big spells, they also repeat them with Grey Sage Parrot, but it's big Spell Mage. I mean, you don't really need me to go over this, do ya? Matchup wise, as you can see, you don't have very horrible ones from the popular ones, but Pure Paladin is gonna be a problem for you, as well as Miracle Rogue. And also Evolve Shaman might be a little bit too big for you. Curse Imp Warlock can be a problem, especially since you give them curses, and that way they actually cannot be playing their Barbaric Sorceress and feel good about it because the spell change can actually land on the curse. And also Enrage Warrior can be a problem, but you're not gonna see too many of those. Mulligan wise, going first and second, Belinda is always gonna be a keep. Deepwater Evoker is also great. Location, Mailbox Dancer, Farwatch Post, Barbaric Sorceress, Amplified Snow Flurry, Pelican Diver 2, and that's probably about it. And when on the coin, here's what it looks like again, and it's literally the same thing. I wouldn't really be keeping Drakefire Amulet just like that, but technically you could hold on to it, especially if you already have a Barbaric Sorceress. And if you actually need something different, you can just tradable it away, I guess. But still, I feel like it's kind of a bait. For other good mage decks, we also have Aggro Mage doing pretty well from Diamond to Legend, and there's also actually Secret Mage doing fairly well too, even though the stats are a little bit lower. For the decks we haven't mentioned, starting with Druid, we still have Aggro Druid and Ramp Druid being the best performers for the class, and there's also still 40 Ramp Druid, which is still doing decently well. With Paladins, the pure Aggro Paladin lists are dominating the top spots for the class, and there's also Dragon Paladin, which is under 50%, so probably stay away from those. For Priest, there's literally not a single positive list, from Diamond to Legend at least, even though some pros are still making Blessed Priest work. For Shaman, Evolve Shaman is the best pick, but also Control, somewhat Swarm Shaman is doing well as well, and Murloc Shaman is also above 50. Big OTK Shaman is also barely above 50, but it's just a scam deck, so you either get the cards or you don't, so I don't know, feels a little bit wonky to me. With Warlocks, we still have Imp Warlock, Curse Imp Warlock, and Phylactery Warlock being the best performers for the class. Seems like Phylactery Warlock is not doing as great nowadays though. And for Warrior, Enraged Warrior is the best performer, even though we don't have too much stats for it. Charged Warrior is also playable, but not by much. So that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing until the new nerfs arrive. If you enjoyed the video, a like and subscribe would really help. Thanks for watching. I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.